This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 491 of the Yellow Wall Pod. I'm your host Stefan Bolsko, and today we will talk about a historic 7-1 win in the Champions League against Celtic. Julian Riasson extending his contract until 2028, and we will preview Saturday's game against his ex-team, which is of course Union Berlin. For that and more, joins me Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. No, I'm doing quite well, Stefan. That was it was a fantastic Champions League week for so many reasons. Not least of which, of course, Dortmund winning, but some other people losing. And yeah. Can we just end the Champions League group stage now, like today? That would be fantastic. Thank you so much, UEFA. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well myself. Dortmund do top the standings in the Champions League after 2 match days. A lot of football is still to be played. However, it is a very nice, as we say in Germany, Momentaufnahme. And like you just said, Bayern Munich losing, for example, was a very nice, sweet treat. The fact that it was Manuel Neuer completely being caught in 2 minds, just looking a little cooked there. Makes my heart grow fonder. But anyway, Matthias, what I wanted to say is that it is mainly Borussia Dortmund that really made me ecstatic, and I think this was just such a amazing game to watch, minus of course the one goal that Dortmund conceded and the Adeyemi injury, which really is a shame because I wanted to see what he can do in the second half. But let's start from the beginning. The beginning to me was that Austin Trusty is not to be trusted because after 5 minutes, Jamie Gittens decided to just walk into the penalty area and get fouled and create a penalty, which Emre Can excellently tucked away. And that sort of was a very early indication of how good Celtic's defending really is, because Gittens really was not really under pressure, but he was at the halfway line more or less, and just decided to turn around with the ball and just go for a stroll. And no one really wanted to stop him. The fullback didn't, the center back didn't, the holding six from Celtic also did not really try to make an attempt on a tackle or anything. He just sort of walked past everyone and then of course clattered into Kaspar Schmeichel. That to me was really the indication of where this was going to go, but after Emre Can deflected the ball onto the opposing striker, which equalized, Dortmund really also showed the amount of individual talent they have. I think the second goal instantly was the response to the equalizer and really helped me calm my nerves down, because I was already seething that a simple cross into the box was enough to create a goal against Dortmund. But the pre-assist, if you want to call it that, the back heel by Serhou Guirassy to Julian Brandt is just out of this world. I mean, it's basically a long ball. I don't know if it was by Kobelbohr or by Schlotterbeck, but it was basically a long ball, and he does that. And it was also really nice to see for Julian Brandt to check into the season and have some really good moments, because that pass to Adeyemi was also really delicious. Now Adeyemi was of course very lucky in that moment to have this deflection, but nevertheless that is a really hard to defend goal overall, because Guirassy, if he does flicks and passes like this, and then you have someone like Adeyemi with that pace run in behind, for any defense in the world, not just Celtics, it's going to be really tough to stop. So, Matthias, before I really talk more about the offensive output, we both have just looked at the FPRef stats, and the XG in Dortmund have 2.6 and Celtic 2.2, and we're sitting here scratching our heads a little bit, because if you look at all the goals that were scored. It just does not feel like this at all, if I'm honest. What are your thoughts on this performance? And obviously, I must pose the question, did this game help in any way or form talk you off the ledge?
It was funny because that was like an immediate question I got on social media was, so did this get you off the ledge? And I said, by an inch. Because there were still defensive question marks in this match. But overall, obviously it was a very good result and overall performance. And yeah, I mean, looking at the statistics, non-penalty XG, Dortmund had 1.1, and scored 5 non-penalty goals. So I realize some of them were relatively low percentage, but like you said pre-recording, that second Guirassy goal only at a 0.3 XG is kind of insane because he dribbled past a few players and then he was in front of goal. I mean, 9 times out of 10, a striker's going to score that one. So it's the statistic. XG doesn't matter. Totally overrated, total garbage stat. But be perfectly honest, I don't get it necessarily in this one because Celtic had 2 really good opportunities. One they scored, and one Kolbe with a fantastic save later in the match. And Dortmund also, possession was like 52%, so it wasn't that much more. Pass accuracy was a little bit better. The big thing was shots on target. Celtic only getting 2, Dortmund getting 11 on target. So that's kind of a big one there. Also, when it came to take-ons and carries, progressive passes, when you look at those, when you go past XG and possession, you could see Dortmund clearly dominated this match from start to finish. And part of it was due to Adeyemi having an absolutely amazing game. He scored a Lupenreiner hat trick, so 3 goals in 1 half of football, which of course is the perfect hat trick.
I never know if the perfect hat trick is also not just in the half, but also you need to score one with their left, one with your right, and one with your head.
That's theoretically the perfect one, but in Germany, of course, Lupenrein just means in 1 half. But hey, he scored 3 goals. He's the what did I see? The youngest ever German player to get to 10 Champions League goals and faster there than Vinny Jr. So, yay, Adeyemi. It's kind of like what I said and what I've written when Adeyemi is on, when he decides he's going to play, he's absolutely electric. When he's kind of not feeling it, he is the most frustrating player to watch on the pitch. But the match plan worked also because Brendan Rodgers is an idiot. So that definitely helps as well. No, I mean, I actually like Brendan Rodgers, but he's an idiot. I mean, to nonstop continue playing a more aggressive style whilst leaving gaps and pushing up against this Dortmund side when you do not match up talent-wise is insane. I think Celtic would have been better, definitely would have been 100% better if Edin Terzic would have coached this match against Dortmund, because odds are Dortmund wouldn't have scored 7. Now, Celtic probably wouldn't have scored 1, but Dortmund wouldn't have scored 7. It was a fantastic performance, and yes, this has inched me off the ledge, but let's be honest, Stefan. Everyone agrees last season was bad except for the Champions League. And so this was great, but I want to see what they do outside of the Champions League. That Champions League is awesome, but if they lay an egg against Union Berlin, then it's immediately like, okay, fine, you scored 7-1 against, a team from a farmers league. Hey. So it just, it's great. I loved it. Yes, I am mildly happier. However, show it to me in the Bundesliga, and then we'll consistently, and then I'll walk my way off the ledge, and more importantly, I'll walk Nuri Sahin off from me pushing him off the ledge.
Well, I think you're right. It really needs to be proven in the Bundesliga, and more of that on the road. I think Union Berlin is going to be much more an indication of where Borussia Dortmund are than this game for sure. But nevertheless, I think it was Clemens, who's a writer for schwarzgelb.de, who I think his Twitter ad is Borussia, and he said to simply enjoy this because it's not too long ago that Borussia Dortmund crashed out the Europa League unceremoniously against Rangers. So even when we say, well, this is a Scottish team which is obviously not as good as Dortmund, not financially as strong, the golfing quality is there, yes, but Dortmund have been in other states where teams of similar caliber, let's say, gave them much more trouble. And part of that is obviously, as you just said, that Brendan Rodgers may or may not be an idiot, but I think we can also just simply acknowledge that Borussia Dortmund are currently an offensive juggernaut, and if you have skilled players like Gittins and if Adeyemi uses his pace, and I mean the shooting technique by Adeyemi in this game was great. I mean the absolute bullet that he scored after I think the recycled corner or whatever it was from the left side of the penalty box. I don't think you can fault Kasper Schmeichel. And then the other goal, the third one that Adeyemi scored, where Dortmund created a goal out of a pressing situation where you put the opponent under so much pressure that they give up possession right around the box. These are just the sort of goals I love seeing. So I think the variety of goals we once again saw in this game was really nice. Girassi scoring this ridiculous dribble goal in the second half really also underscores what a world-class striker he is. But I just, in general, I think with this lineup and the front four, and it doesn't even matter if it's Adeyemi, Malen, or if you plug in Duranville, and all we needed was Julian Brandt to play a little bit better and Girassi to be Girassi, and then everyone else can play off of that, I feel like. And yeah, Jan Koto, I think, is doing really well offensively. I like how Riasson is also pushing up high in games like this. So my takeaway is, against opponents that are not of the same individual class, Dortmund will have solutions, because one thing that was really encouraging to me is that Dortmund's passing angles and positioning, at least against Celtic, was extremely good in the first half, that they managed to pass the ball around, create these triangles and the angles you need to pass the ball around confidently. Obviously, Celtic did not have the best defensive organization, but nevertheless, I think when we talk about structures and principles and what we, I think in German we call it Freilaufverhalten, basically the way after you pass the ball, how you get yourself open again. I think we have a solid foundation, at least in possession and in attack, and obviously it's going to look easier against Celtic, and it's going to result in a lot of goals in such a game. But I think overall Dortmund is going to create a lot of scoring chances this season, and it is, to simply describe it, fun. And I like having fun, and I'm already looking forward to the next game. And I think whether you're on the ledge or not, just knowing all the chaos, we always know that this magic can happen at any time in any game, I think is a nice promise to have. And if it's nothing else, then this is at least the big positive I'm taking out of it. But again, just want to underscore, it is not just that Dortmund had lucky finishes in this game. I think the overall message here is that Dortmund are getting comfortable in possession and attacking in the final third. And as for Adeyemi, I think he's been criticized a lot for his decision-making on the field, but I think he needs to be absolutely praised for his decision-making off the field. I think he has approached this season with a different maturity than last season. I think he has talked about it a lot to basically keep the main thing and really focus on football. And I like his work ethic. I love how he pressed, how he was really hungry to gain the ball, and that to me tells me much more about Adeyemi and the player he is currently than whether he scores an absolute rocket from the left side of the penalty area, which of course is a nice bonus. But would we all like for him to make a few better decisions during counterattacks when he's going full speed? Yes. But I think most importantly, I think it's his mentality and approach to the game that is allowing him to have these performances, and it feels a bit more consistent already this season than last season. So I understand the frustration with Adeyemi, but I think he's having his coming of age season. So I don't know how you feel about this, but I think while defensively Dortmund are definitely on the ledge, because if we look, I know you just trashed XG, but if we look at it basically throughout the entire season so far, then Dortmund just create too many expected goals against, and they need to sort of shut that water off.
Exactly. Yeah, it's great if you're going forward and attacking and creating opportunities and scoring goals. And yeah, you score 2-3 goals, but if the opposition's scoring 3-4 goals, it really doesn't matter. And obviously we saw against Stuttgart how horrible that can end. So I think anybody with two eyes and a brain cell knows that Dortmund have to figure out this balance and figure it out quickly with defense and the transitioning and not getting caught out in position in transition phases and then having these large gaps appear. I mean, that's one of the big things. You can't allow your defenders to be left on one-on-one situations that often because they will then pay the price, even against bad teams like Bochum. So, but yes, I agree. Enjoy this, especially with Dortmund being top of the Champions League right now, and the fact that Leipzig didn't quite do it and Bayern didn't quite do it. Really makes it
Stuttgart also
nicer.
didn't quite do it.
That's true, but I don't have any glee in that necessarily, like I do with Leipzig and with Bayern. And the fact that, Real Madrid and Barcelona have lost as well. I mean, and Milan haven't even, I don't think Milan's gotten a point yet. So it's all good. I'm happy with the Champions League season so far.
Yeah, I mean, we still have 6 match days to go, so a lot of things can happen. But
those are details, Stefan. We don't need to worry about the details.
The start could not have been better, honestly. And Dortmund are doing their homework against the teams they need to take care of business against. And so I am really, really happy with that. But obviously, we still have to play Real Madrid, and they just put a little bit more pressure onto themselves. But one point I wanted to make about Guirassy, because last episode I was talking about Peter Bosz and how I'm reminded of the instability of Peter Bosz's team. But there's one key difference I find, that obviously we don't have Peter Bosz on the sideline, but one of the big reasons Peter Bosz's entire system failed and collapsed was that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang especially refused to press and play the way Peter Bosz wanted him to play, because if you press that aggressively, it all obviously hinges on the cohesion of the team. And if the striker, who is the very first wave of your pressing in most parts, does not play along, then you will have gaps that the rest of your teammates cannot close. And Dortmund are obviously not pressing the same way, although they are often pressing also very high and very aggressively. But I just wanted to say that Guirassy, besides his amazing footballing skills, also has a delicious work rate, and I think he deserves praise, especially coming out of the injury he came off, that he instantly is trying to go full throttle and he is pressing opponents in a way that very few strikers have since Lewandowski and I think Erling Haaland you can count, who also pressed opponents simply just because he had the space, but he also the pace, but he also had a good work rate. And Guirassy really in that regard to me feels very complete-ish as a striker, just because he really is also our first defender and earns to be called that. And I'm really happy about it, because I think Dortmund, and you've seen it against Celtic, but also in other games, will create a lot of chances also due to Guirassy trying to put the ball leading defender or whoever under pressure and make it uncomfortable for the opponent. And as I just explained, it has to start with a striker. That cohesion is absolutely a must, and for him to provide that makes something tingle deep down in me. I don't know. It might be still from the Klopp era, because that's how Dortmund started to turn things around and really go on this road to success where they are now over a decade later. And Guirassy, just a really special player, and I just want to rave about him. And he's just been here just a couple weeks basically. I mean, the way he just drops into midfield often, and then is a hub to pass, and from there on can play make too. I mean, the pass to Brandt against Bochum, where Brandt then obviously missed a chance, but who does that? So to have someone who can score the header against Bochum, can play that pass, can dribble around the center back like he did for the second goal, is amazing. Now, the only thing maybe a tiny bit irksome, and I don't know what you think about this, is that his hunger for goals makes him contest Emre Can for the penalty every time Emre Can tries to put the ball down for himself. I'm a little bit caught in two minds here. On the one hand, I appreciate that our striker wants to score goals in any which way or form and has the confidence to score penalties, and I mean the 2-1 he has scored were taking really well. Nevertheless, the pecking order is pretty clear. Emre Can is our clear number one penalty taker. He has a 100% record, and to always sort of undermine him every time Dortmund get a penalty, I don't know. It raises a few question marks in my mind. What do you make out of this?
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing, I mean, there are many things that annoy me, but if there's one thing that really annoys me is when I see grown-ass men fighting over who gets to kick a penalty. Like, no, this is agreed upon before a match or as a general setup, and that's the way it is. Suck it up, buttercup, and move on. I cannot stand that. I mean, we've seen it over decades, where players would literally fight over getting the ball. Now, the one situation where you could maybe then acquiesce to a different player is if they're sitting on a hat trick and be like, here you go. Especially if the match is pretty much won at that point. But the pecking order for penalty taking is something that should never be questioned, especially in a match. It just looks stupid. It looks stupid. It looks so childish and petulant. You know who's going to be taking it, and just move on.
Yeah, I think we also should move on, because Julian Riasson did pen to paper and has extended his contract until 2028. Matthias, what are your thoughts on that?
I would say that he is one of the best, most shrewd signings in the Kehl era to date. Didn't cost a lot of money. His wages, I'm assuming, are decent as far as the overall percentage of budget. And he just puts in the work. I mean, he kind of falls into that Großkreuz, Schmelzer type of mold in terms of not an amazingly great world-class player, but he puts in the work. He scores goals. You always know he's going to be there, and he's going to give 100% and work his ass off every time. Even if he makes a mistake, which he doesn't make a lot of mistakes either, he's just a solid player, and Dortmund need solid players along with obviously the really flashy ones, because you can always depend on Julian Riasson. So I'm really happy about that the signing was ever made, because it took us all a bit by surprise, and I didn't see it coming at the time, and I'm like, really? Him? I don't really know anything about him. And it was an absolutely fantastic signing, and I'm glad he extended his contract. And I do find it poignant that the contract extension happens a few days before he gets to play against Union Berlin again.
He nearly won a championship with Dortmund when he made the move in that half season, and he is a Champions League finalist, which obviously did not win, but still a pretty nice thing to experience as a footballer, I want to say. And of course, now he is an established fullback at Borussia Dortmund. I think there are a few people who say that Dortmund probably should have better fullbacks in general, where Riasson would not be a starter. But nevertheless, that he is so versatile that he can play left and right back, and as you said, always gives 100%. Is really just a credit to him as a player, and I think he is absolutely revered in Dortmund. I personally just love watching Riasson play football, even though we all know he is not the best footballer. But that being said, he also has his moments. He certainly has his moments. I mean, we all can pinpoint to goal against Hoffenheim. I think it's an absolute no-brainer to extend with him, because he is let's call it, he's a foundation player. You can absolutely build on him because you can rely on him, and to not extend him would be absolutely ridiculous. I think he is a player that is currently in his prime and will be for years to come. So I think this contract extension makes perfect sense. And we had this with Marcel Schmelzer, where there were so many left backs coming in where we thought, okay, now Marcel Schmelzer's time is coming to an end. In the end, I think Guerrero was the one to finally unseat him, but even that took quite a while, and for Schmelzer was probably more injuries in his own body that did it. But all I'm saying is that if you are this reliable and extremely solid, it is not going to be easy to find someone come along that is going to be better than him. So very important for Dortmund. It's also nice to have some consistency on that position. So I'm glad, and now I hope that will give him a nice little boost against Union Berlin, who Dortmund play this weekend. And Matthias, we already talked about it in the last episode. We will definitely talk about it now. Pascal Groß has said, I think in the pre-game news conference to the Celtic game, that the discrepancy between Dortmund playing at home and on the road is still quite stark, and he has talked about how playing well also now needs to translate to playing on the road. And I mean, if you look at the road games, whether it be the first game in the cup where the opponent hit the bar 3 times, or the scoreless draw against Bremen, and of course the 5-1 drubbing, and even the Bruges game was more of a 50-50 game than the 3-0 in the end would suggest. So my question to you is, why do you think that Dortmund have played so poorly so far on the roads, and do you think that they are going to easily turn this around at some point, or do you think this is going to be the road or away phase, or whatever you want to call it, of this team, and is sort of their brand, as has been far too often, annoyingly?
I think, Stefan, if I could answer that first question properly, I would probably get a job at Borussia Dortmund. Why Dortmund are so the way they are away from home, I'll be honest, I don't know. It's really weird to me. I don't understand how you can have such a stark contrast in performance just depending on in which stadium you are. Because it's not like it's time zones or all that kind of stuff that you're dealing with. It's just, it's got to be a head thing in some way, and I don't get it. I personally don't understand it. I do understand that playing at home, there's a psychological boost there.
Especially in the
that's-
Westfalenstadion.
Yeah, I mean that's simply proven. That is a fact that all teams play better at home than they do on the road. Now, better at home doesn't mean good at home, crap on the road. That just means they're better at home. So if they're a good team, they play great at home and then good on the road. Dortmund play pretty good at home and then just decide to not show up half the time on the road. And I don't know what it is. I mean, if it really is down to they don't have the yellow wall there cheering them on, then I've got some major questions behind motivation. And
Also, Dortmund have amazing away support. Probably one of the
They
best in the
do.
Bundesliga.
And
if
that's
not
why
the best in the Bundesliga.
Even if they're stuck, if they travel internationally and somehow they get put like basically in a different zip code in the stadium, they're still louder than the home fans. So I honestly, I don't understand it. Maybe the grass is too long. Dude, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's unacceptable to me because it's unexplainable for me to have that Jekyll and Hyde type of face. Now, to your second question, is this simply going to be the Face Dortmund show until they prove otherwise? Yes. And this weekend is the perfect match to show that this is not who you are. Because Union Berlin in Berlin for Dortmund has not been a happy place. And so if they can show up there, not just necessarily dominate, but have a win where you're not crapping your pants 90 minutes about what's going to happen. Like, I think you said it, just an unspectacular, dirty 2-0 win, something like that. I mean, that already sets the tone because honestly, that's what Leverkusen can do. That's what Bayern do plenty of times. They don't always dominate, but they get the results they need to get. And Dortmund needs to do that latter thing, get the result you need to get. More often than not. And doing that away from home is something they have to prove. And Union Berlin is a perfect opponent to shut me up. So I'm hoping Nuri Sahin and Borussia Dortmund make me eat my words. But I do believe that's simply who they are right now.
Well, here's my simple challenge that I have. And I know we talked about XG being a crap statistic, but just in general, I would love this XG against come down to under 1 point, whatever it is. Because against Stuttgart, obviously, it was the highest 3.4. Against Celtic, as we said, 2.2, but didn't feel that way. But even Heidenheim, 1.8, Frankfurt, 1.4, Bochum, 1.3, and Club Brugge, 1.2. So Werder Bremen is the only game which was a scoreless draw where the expected goals against were under 1. It was 0.3. And I feel like this is a number where Dortmund need to be around far more often, especially against Bundesliga teams that are in the mid-pack. It's just not going to be sustainable to have any success in the Bundesliga if this number averages around 1.3 or 1.4. It's just never going to happen because Dortmund need to concede far fewer goals. And if we're somewhere at 0.7 or 8, we'd already be in a much better world. So to me, this game, what is important to me, we can talk about rotation and things like that in a minute, but what is important to me is that Dortmund do really take care of possession and not make too many sloppy errors, not give Union Berlin some unforced momentum. Obviously just talking about very simple basics, but I think that is what Dortmund just need to focus on to get the simple things right and not try to backheel yourself into good positions. You can do that against Celtic, but I feel like against Union Berlin you need to play just a little bit more smarter and a little bit more risk averse. And from there on, of course, Also, whoever is playing on the wings, they really need to help out the fullbacks. I think that is also really important. And I'm really intrigued how Union Berlin are going to stylistically match up against Dortmund, because I have not really watched an Union Berlin game in a while. Obviously, it's going to be the rematch against Tom Rote, if you will. And let's see how this is going to hurt us when we talk about the curse of the X. Might be prevalent on the fullback position. But I don't know how much you have watched Union Berlin this season. They are, I think, 9th in the league right now, so really smack dab in the middle of it. They have 8 points, so just 2 fewer than Dortmund. Have won 2, drawn 2, and lost 1. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Saturday's opponent, under Bo Svensson, who has hurt Dortmund in the past?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Bo Svensson was kind of on the sideline that last match day not too long ago when Dortmund should have won the Bundesliga. I rate Bo Svensson very highly. The turnaround he was able to achieve with Mainz was absolutely phenomenal, and I think he can do similar things with Union Berlin. They're not as dire as they were under Urs Fischer. I absolutely detested the way they played, so they're playing a little bit more, I'm not going to say attractive, but at least they're not, playing the way they're not Darmstadt balling it all the time. So there's a little bit more to their game. They came off an absolutely horrendous season for their standards, and I think now they're kind of finding their feet again. I think that mid-table is probably where they're going to end up by the end of the season anyway. But yeah, Bo Svensson, him specifically, then the players and the fans in the stadium, they know they can get to Dortmund. They know in Berlin, they know how to play Dortmund and win, not lose, but to win against Dortmund. And so Svensson, who is a more veteran, seasoned coach than Nuri Sahin is going to have a plan for Dortmund. The key thing is who those wingers are, like you said, who's going to start. I don't know what the situation is with Adeyemi. Obviously, he got subbed off.
He's going to be out.
He's not listed that in terms of injured players, long-term injury stuff, but he's probably not going to play.
The Ruhrnachrichten already reported that he will be missing this game.
So you're going to start with Gittens, hopefully Malen. He was out against Celtic because he was sick. If it is Gittens and then Duranville, that makes me less confident, to be perfectly honest. I like Duranville. I think he works really hard, but he's still a kid. Gittens,
you could see against Celtic, even in that game, that Duranville is still really, really raw.
Yes. Yeah. And Gittens doesn't try very hard defensively. If you want a defensive performance from your wingers, it always has to be Adeyemi and Malen. And since there's a question, one of them's out and a question mark behind the other one, we'll have to see. And just don't put Zabitza on the wing. Like, I mean, for crying out loud, let's just not do that again. Okay. But some players might need rest. Maybe Maxi Baya comes in on the wing. That could be a good option, to be honest. Also because he does have a better work rate than either Gittens or Duranville.
I really wanted to ask you this because I have so many question marks about Maxi Bayer. Obviously, the answer for him is just time, I guess, for now, because he just needs a lot of it to really adapt to his new job, if you will. But it's it's not an obvious plug and play transfer. All by the transfer
no,
fee.
He's a totally different striker than Guirassy, of course. I personally would like to see him come off the wings or sit behind. I mean, you could put Brandt on the wing. Brandt is also not the greatest defender. Let's put it that way.
Also not the greatest winger.
No, not the greatest winger. His pressing resistance is pretty good, though, overall. Not Marco Reus level, but it's pretty good. that's really, you hit the nail on the head in terms of wing play is going to be important on a defensive sense, not attacking. Not worried about that, no matter who Dortmund put in there. But in a defensive sense, that's going to be the key one. I think that's where this match is going to be won and lost. I don't think it's going to be in the center of the park. And I think Bo Svensson and Union Berlin know that. And I think if they're smart, they're going to go that way. They've looked at the matches. They know Dortmund are going to leave openings and then attack those openings across the wings with long balls and run in behind and get into one-on-one situation against Dortmund backline, specifically the central defenders. When the fullbacks push up, especially if Jan Koto starts, because he does push up more aggressively than Riasson does. I mean, I may even say maybe you start Riasson on the right and Benzabaini on the left, just to get a little bit more defensive stability into that back line.
I don't know. Is this Benzabaini what my English teacher used to call false friends, where you think it's right, but it's actually wrong? Maybe Benzabaini does not give you the more defensive stability because he loses the ball more often. Even when he came in against Celtic, I thought, okay, the poor
I'm
touches.
trying here, Stefan.
I know, but I mean, from my eye test is telling me Benzabaini
is at left back. Süle at right back. Actually,
maybe Süle at right back.
Actually, if you had another central defender rather than just three, and all kidding aside, I wouldn't hate that option, because Süle, even when it was out of fitness, Süle actually did okay at right back. So I wouldn't hate that option if Dortmund had more central defenders than just the three.
Yeah. The Matthias Ginter Memorial right back.
Yeah, no kidding.
That worked too under Thomas Tuchel. He just cut it back and we scored from it a bucket of goals. So and Niklas Süle is very underrated as a attacking player too. I mean, he did play striker. I mean, everyone played striker at some point, but
even Manuel Neuer played striker.
Exactly. Also against Aston Villa apparently. But I digress. I think Süle as a right back is actually I'm totally okay with that. If push comes to shove, I mean, we have done it a couple times via substitutions to close out games, and I really wonder if it's going to be Pascal Gross again starting in this game, or if he finally gets a break, because I think he needs one. I thought that against Celtic he was going to get more of a rest. Obviously, he got subbed out relatively early from Mecha, but if I also would not hate it too much if it was a Mecha and Can holding pivot against Union Berlin, just because I think you need to rotate a little bit. There are a few tired legs and minds in that lineup. I know Pascal Gross is important to Dortmund's structure and whatnot, but even he looked very out of sorts against Stuttgart and in the game before. I feel like he just needs a little bit of a break, and considering that he has been also called up to the German national team, you need to find those here and there. And it's funny, we talk about Julian Riasson being a dynamo, but I don't know. He has been running ragged everywhere too. The lack of depth really might hurt Dortmund in the long run this season, just because of the absolute onslaught of games. So I'm really struggling to see how Schein is going to effectively rotate, and players are not going to be running out of gas again when it turns November and December. Just a few questions.
Yeah. We'll see. But against Union Berlin, let's just say there are options. I'm not a big fan of a lot of them. You
always want to play the best team, obviously, but you have to compromise.
Yes.
You have
Correct.
to compromise. That is part of the job when you coach Borussia Dortmund through a 60-game season. And then you have to play the not 1A option against Union Berlin on the road sometime in October. it happens.
I agree.
Or it doesn't happen. Maybe Shine plays just the best players and they just run out of gas eventually, and that can also happen. Has happened.
I actually
before.
wouldn't be surprised if that happens. That wouldn't shock me at this point either, because man management is obviously something we have no idea how good he is with it. Now, I will say, unlike his predecessor, Nuri Sahin at least uses his available substitutions. So, and he doesn't wait until the 89th minute to start with them.
Here,
So
Yusufa, we're 3 goals down. We have 5 minutes left. Why don't you win that game for us?
Correct. Now we're going to play 4-4-2. No, when it comes to man management in the match and making those changes with subs, Nuri Sahin does it better than Edin Terzic. But I mean, he actually uses the 5 substitutions, which I'd like to say again was one of the best rules changes I've seen in many, many years. The 5 subs edition, I think, is fantastic, and it helps these players who are asked to play way too many matches these days. And, I think will also, in a long-term sense, helps reduce injuries just because you can sub off more players.
Yeah, I totally agree. But like we just said, Union Berlin is going to be a really tricky game and is more of a measuring stick than a historic Champions League performance. But like I said before, go watch the highlights again. It is fun. And we'll see you on the flip side after the Union Berlin game and after the international break. So until then, thank you as always for listening. Until next time. Goodbye.